All right, so I was driving back from Petco today because the aquarium store that I wanted to go to, that's been there for years, when I finally needed it, it was out of business and replaced with a cheap little lunchtime restaurant called Snacks. And so I asked the the app, the Maps app, where the next place that sold fish stuff was, and it was literally right across the street. It was much larger than the one that I went to yesterday. Same brand though. But as I was driving home, I decided that, you know what, let's go check out According to Nicole's channel. And she actually had a really good video. Again, probably a girl that should be doing a podcast, but she's very well off for what she does. She has sponsors for every single one of her videos. She makes a decent living. She probably makes between five and $10,000 a month doing YouTube, which is where I'd like to be at some point. I don't intend to work hourly jobs for the rest of my life, or at least that was never the plan when I started this YouTube channel 20 years ago. I keep saying that like it's just not a lot of time. 20 years ago. And I'm still working, trying to work on the dream here to try to get out of the rat race. But in her video, she was talking about something that I've noticed throughout my entire career. As most of you people that have been on my channel for any amount of time know, I'm the most educated person I know. It may not be the best education in the world, but I spent half my life at university becoming an educated man, which has resulted in $0 earned from that education. Just a mountain of student loan debt and dreams of a life that will never be. That's why I'm on the internet right now. But while she was talking, she made mention how the title of the video, I think, is Idiots Run the World. And as a person who spent my entire life in higher education, pretty much up until the last few years, oh God, it feels like so long since I got out of school. I was in school for so long and then I got out of school and now it's been so long. But idiots do run the world. Every time you open a news site and you look at what they're talking about and you think, well, is it a good idea to get rid of food stamps when everyone is broke? I think not. But of course, they're floating that idea that poor people don't need food stamps, they need another job. Again, stupidity and being out of touch, being a person who doesn't live in reality and understand that the vast majority of wage earners are not earning a living wage. They are relying on corporate welfare to pay for their workers' needs, whether it's through Section 8 housing, food stamps, or free medical insurance, whatever it is, they are passing the cost on to everyone else. When a worker doesn't make a living wage, someone else has to pick up the bill. And that would be you. Because those people, through the corporations, they don't care whether or not their workers eat or if they have anywhere to sleep. They just care about record profits. And that's something that we all know. We've come to accept it, right? That the world's not fair. But I never thought that the world would really turn into the movie Idiocracy. Right down to the president that is depicted in that movie. We are literally living in idiocracy right at this moment. And it sucks because we all know what's wrong with society. Again, I passed that homeless woman who was down the street, who I mentioned in an early video, which I think you guys saw today. I don't know, I have so many videos backlogged right now, so I don't have to work after work or work before work. I can just do these videos in my free time and just put them up as I go along. But I saw them coming over to her, and it's a van that has the word hope on it. What a disturbing thing to have a van show up that says hope on it while you're pushing a shopping cart. Yeah, you're like the most hopeless person in society. And it's by design. You know, I've said this 100 times. Those people are out there because the system failed to help them. The nonprofits that are supposed to help the homeless and feed the hungry, they're not working, obviously. Most of societal problems aren't getting fixed. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that no one really cares. And that's what, according to Nicole, talked about today. The easiest way to be rich is to have rich parents. And she listed off a bunch of rich people, including Taylor Swift, which I didn't know, that got rich because someone else could pay their way. For the rest of us, if you were born in a mud hut in the middle of Mexico, where there is nothing out there. Where I come from, it literally was a mud hut that was built on a ranch. That's where I spent the first 6 years of my life. No running water, no electricity, no nothing. The wind would blow in through the cracks in the walls. That's how rustic it was. And that's when you know that you're not going to amount to anything. I'm not going to get a little loan from my dad. I'm not going to get a little loan from my mom. It was just you understand when you come from nothing that you will be nothing. So, with that said, let's get into our introduction. Hi, I'm broke and tired of pretending that rich people are smart just because they're rich. Because let me tell you something, I've cleaned toilets for people who couldn't spell toilet. I've stocked shelves for managers who couldn't explain what we were stocking. And I've sat in job interviews with people who looked at me dead in the eye and said, "We're like family here," while offering me the minimum wage to be emotionally abused full time. The first time that you're working in retail and you have a grown person yelling at you 6 inches from your face about something you didn't do, like a training you didn't do in a retail store, that's how you know you're in hell. Because that person didn't finish high school. That person may make a lot more money than you. But when they go home, they're drinking beer and they're watching Netflix. There is nothing in that person's mind other than the next Marvel movie or pro sports. This morning, while I was working out at the gym, I stuck both my fingers in my ears because people were talking about pro sports like it actually mattered. There's so many things in this world to actually be passionate about. And they're talking about the game. And I was just like, oh my God. This is why it was so easy to domesticate these people, because all they need to do is see a flash of skin, some muscles, some hair, some bonkers, some booty. I mean, it's not hard to manipulate the proletariat into believing that their poverty is their own fault. When a grown person offers another grown person the minimum wage in 20 hours and says this is all that we can afford, our profit margins are razor thin. That to me goes to show that most rich people think that poor people are children. And because no one offers another person the paycheck and then smiles, and then when you do well, you get your McDonald's Happy Meal toy. That's the world we live in. That's the way they see us. As long as they give you your Happy Meal toy every single week, you should be grateful. Talking point number 1. We've been brainwashed to believe that if you're rich, you must be smart. But that's a lie. Rich people told us they could feel better about hoarding something. That came out wrong. But that's a lie rich people told us so that they could feel better about hoarding everything. Think about it. Half the billionaires in America inherited their wealth like you were born on third base and think you hit a triple. Please. Jeff Bezos got $300 loan from his parents to start Amazon. This is the one that I stuck out in my mind. Taylor Swift's dad literally bought her record label a stake in her future. But sure, let's keep pretending it's all bootstraps and hustle. You guys come into my comments occasionally, keep telling me to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I'm going to be fine. What's wrong with you? Do you truly believe that playing the lottery every week is eventually going to make you rich? Is that what we've come to the conclusion? Because I've seen a lot of poor people buying lottery tickets. The first time that I mentioned the girl that works at Circle K, it was because she was rolling her eyes at the customer in front of me. Because he said to her, As soon as I win this the lottery, I'm going to come back and I'm going to share it with you. And then he comes back in. And it's like, where do I exactly claim the money once I win the lottery with this ticket? And once he leaves, she looks at me and she says, he bought the cheapest lottery ticket we have. And I was like, that was actually, in fact, the last time I saw her before she went on maternity leave to have her 11th child. Yeah. And I mean, what can you do? I mean, you have to give people some kind of hope. And every society for probably hundreds of years has some form of the lottery to keep people chasing the carrot. Because if they're not chasing the carrot, they realize that they're getting nothing but the stick. And we know where the stick in the carrot. When there's no carrot, the stick goes right back in there where you don't want it. And I assure you, I never want it. But the game has become all stick. Population, you at Pound Town. All right, let's move on to our next talking point. Let's see. Let's do this one. I know people with multiple degrees working retail. I know moms with GEDs who understand economics better than your average hedge fund manager. I know trans women, undocumented workers, and disabled folks out-thinking executives. But no one takes them seriously because their resumes don't scream Harvard. But the guy in the Patagonia vest who bullies interns and plays golf with the CFO, he's a visionary. Nah, bro, he's just tall and white and confident enough to lie to a whole room full of investors. Where have I seen that before? And in fact, you guys would love to hear this. I am a GED recipient. I didn't go to high school. I dropped out of school in 7th grade because I had to go to the middle school that was right next to the projects. And if you think that I wanted to go to that middle school, you would be absolutely wrong. The truancy officer was constantly chasing me as a child, and they were constantly telling my mother that if I didn't go to school, that it would ruin my life. Maybe it did. Or maybe it had a lot to do with my mother's bank account and the demographic of my neighborhood. Because I was just one street away from getting to go to Brim Hall, which would have meant that I would have stayed a top level student throughout high school. Instead, I dropped out in the 7th grade. I got a GED a few years later, and then I spent the rest of my adult life from that point on at the university. Why? Because even though I didn't want to go to high school because of the environment, I still had the aptitude to be able to function at a university. Why? Because some people can do these things and some people can't. I didn't ever want to learn anything about technology. I've had almost no technology education whatsoever. Nearly everything that I've learned about computers and technology and everything that I do for work, I taught myself because that's what people like me do. You teach yourself. I am not cleaning houses. I haven't cleaned a toilet in a few years now, a public toilet, but I have cleaned toilets. I mean, I cleaned toilets with my mom when I was a kid, when it was summer and she couldn't rely on the public school system, which is just daycare for poor people, right? That's what the public school system, it's not there to make certain that you get a good education. It's there so that your poor parents have somewhere to send you that at least functions as a semi-educational facility. But I learned at a very young age that rich people are very different than us because despite not being around rich people, as in rich people, my peers, I have cleaned bathrooms at Camelback Mountain and Paradise Valley from when I was 6 years old all the way until I was 15 years old. So there's about 9 years where I got to go on a regular basis to see those mansions, to see those gigantic homes up there on the mountain from the perspective of being on your knees and cleaning a toilet. Not from the perspective of living there or owning anything there or feeling like you even belong there. When the army of Hispanic cleaning ladies show up to clean these homes, they know that they're there as outsiders. And I think that's one of the main reasons why what's happening is happening right now is they literally want to get rid of every outsider and make certain that there's an American cleaning that toilet in Paradise Valley. But the sad part is that regular people, they ain't going to do those jobs. That's the joke, is that we have leadership in this country that really doesn't understand what ordinary Americans want to do. Ordinary Americans want to be comfortable. They don't want to do those jobs. Those immigrants, my mom who came to this country, she knew that cleaning toilets was all that was in her future. No education, no English, no ambition to do better. Because she comes from hundreds of years of being a farmer, which would have been my career if she hadn't decided to leave the farm. That's all there was there. There was no other. You can go work in retail when you're living in the middle of nowhere. You farm the land, you eat what you farm, and if the harvest fails, it's a tough winter. Anyhow, let's see. Let's move on to talking to our final talking point. There's a couple of talking points in here that were completely unrelated to the rest of the story that ChatGPT generated, and sometimes it does that. Sometimes I just literally have to avoid what it says because it just is so absurd. All right, so let's go to this one. This was actually my favorite. Capitalism rewards cruelty, not genius. You want to know why the most successful people in the world are often the worst? Because empathy doesn't scale. Being a good person slows you down when you're trying to climb the ladder by stepping on people. Capitalism doesn't want smart, ethical, thoughtful leaders. It wants sharks. It wants con artists. It wants people who can smile while firing 1,000 workers. And if you're wondering why so many billionaires are divorced, disconnected, or addicted, it's because they had to trade in their humanity to win. Ooh, that is a mouthful, people. Trade in your humanity to win. I've always said that we give up our human card once you're making the minimum wage. Like, it literally means that you are no longer considered a valid unit of labor in our society. If you're working at a meatpacking place, do you think that you are there because you're the best and brightest? No. You're there because you're willing to do that work. And that's the most difficult part. Because I remember watching a movie years ago, I think it was called Food Nation, in which they showed the awful nature of what it is like to work in a place where I would almost say the color of your skin dictates the kind of work that you're going to get. And these people know that they're not coming here to live a glorious life. Again, quoting what Mello said the other day, the immigrants aren't coming to America to take away the CEO jobs and become executives. That's not why they're here. They're here to do the tough work, the thankless work, the farm work. They're the people who are going to remain silent. And I think more of the regular people, the 99% people, have become very complacent in their silence. Because I think at a different time in society, I think instead of having no king rallies, that they would have living wage rallies constantly, bullying those at the top to the point where they have no choice. But as long as people stay quiet, they can continue living off corporate welfare. They may not want you to get food stamps, but they definitely want to get their food stamps. All right, so here is our conclusion. So if you've ever felt like you're falling behind, not because you're dumb, but because you're not rich, let me tell you something, you're not the problem. The game is rigged. The smartest people don't always win. Sometimes they just survive. And that's not a failure. That's a miracle. And if you're watching this, Still breathing, still fighting. You're part of it. I love these like happy endings that ChatGPT always inserts into all of its scripts. Sometimes I'll catch myself and I won't read them. Other times it's just the segment that I've been leaving out for a long time, toxic positivity. We live in a world where if you do not drink the Kool-Aid and are willing to sit there and somehow hit yourself over the head with a mallet, the toxic positivity mallet every day, somehow you're the problem. When your boss comes up to you and he says, "You're not a team player," you just look at him, and I'll just refer to my boss from now on in the female, right? She, whenever she looks at you, your boss, and thinks, "Oh my God, is this the stupidest person I've ever met in my entire life?" Because people do that. When she looks at you and says something to you to the effect, and this is actually something I've heard from a manager in the workplace. I had so much hope for this millennials team. I would hope that he'd be one of the good workers. And then they turn around, they walk away, and then that's it. They no longer care whether or not you show up, you do anything. All they want to do is just get their job done and be done with everyone else. They treat everyone else like crap. And this is a universal thing that I've seen. When I was at working at Insight, once a worker failed to do something and it became the job of someone above their pay grade to handle it, suddenly that manager is like, "Oh, I'm through with this person." And it was especially evident when people would put in their 2 weeks. I never recommend anyone put in 2 weeks. It is the dumbest thing that people have been gaslighted into believing because it never works out for you. In fact, it usually works out badly. Most of the time that I have seen it end really badly, it's when they're already not willing to engage with you, and they just fire you on the spot. That's what happens. But you, but this, what would I consider to be honorable in a workplace. It's like loyalty in the workplace. Is it honorable to do it, or is it stupid? I mean, you guys are coming to my comment section all the time and talk about how you shouldn't be loyal to any company because any company in the world will fire you to save money, hands down. You have no value when it comes to saving money. That's why the management can fire 10,000 people and be like, "You know what, we needed to do? We needed to do this." I mean, in fact, I think I just read last week that Microsoft is laying off 10% of its workers. Does Microsoft really need to do that? Is Microsoft really hurting that much that it needs to let go of that many thousands of people and put them into an e-job economy? That's frightful. If you're out there right now looking for a job, thoughts and prayers, people. Thoughts and prayers. Because every person that leaves a comment about recently losing a job knows that it's not going to be easy. Chances are there's going to be some minimum wage work in there. You're going to be putting the fries in the bag, little bro, because there are millions of people fighting over the same jobs. And it's what I tell young people all the time about getting an education, especially a long-term education. When you finally finish your education and you go out to look for your first job, you're going to be dealing with people who, instead of getting education, have spent that entire time getting better and better at their current job. That's your competition. When you walk into a job interview and you see the four other people sitting there waiting to interview for the same job, and you just got out of school, do you think they're going to pick you instead of one of the other four people that have 10 years of experience and that are willing to take $16 an hour with a master's degree? Yeah, that's how rough it is out there. That's why every time the university graduates 20,000 new students, new graduates, I cringe. Where are these people going to go? They're not people that want to take jobs stocking shelves. And it's very apparent when they go to job fairs that they're looking for those top positions. That's the biggest problem with Gen Z right now, is they don't want to start out at the bottom. They want to go straight to the top, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the education. They don't have the ability to adapt. And that's the hardest thing, because in order to be able to be an adaptive person in any environment, you have to have experience. If you can't draw on experience, then you don't have anything in the tank. And that's what's so hard. That's why corporations want 3 to 5 years of experience, because they don't want to have to train you on the very basic level of the job. Like, you can ask Gen Z to do something and they just got out of school and they'll look at you. It's like, well, how do I do that? You, any manager that you ask the question, well, can you show me how to do that? It's going to look at you and tell you to Google it, because they don't have time or patience or care. If you're an entry level, if you're an entry level position and you have, and again, this is the joke about entry level jobs, is that if you're an entry level job, you better have 3 to 5 years of experience, because you're going to get canned really fast, because that's what's happening to Gen Z. They're showing up at corporations and they're getting fired just as fast as they're getting hired, because you can't stop to show someone soft skills or common sense or be able to use another situation in order to be able to know how to do something else. Like the other day, I was helping my coworker install a server, and I was like, I've been in the server room since I was a teen. I've been around racks and cabling. I've been around all this stuff pretty much my whole life. But if I were to send a person without any experience, if I handed him the box and I told him, go install this for me, what would they do? What would they say to you? Well, the really smart ones would go on YouTube and watch a few videos and learn how to do it. But the ones that truly can't adapt and don't have experience, they will sit there and they will just look at you and they won't do it. I've experienced this on many occasions. They just look at you and you're just like, okay, go do it. And they just look at you like, I don't know how. Uh-oh. The words, I don't know how, are you telling your boss that you don't know how to do your job? And if you don't know how to do your job, then why would your boss pay you? I mean, that's coming back full circle. If I asked anyone that I know to make a millennial STEAM style YouTube channel, and this is what I asked them to do, to create topics every day based on dystopian entertainment, because that's what this channel is, right? You come here for dystopian entertainment. That is the genre of this channel. That's why it's so dark. That's why it's black pill. I'm not here to paint a happy story. This is a black pill dystopian entertainment channel. You come here to hear this stuff because no one else will say this stuff out loud, because it's not considered civilized, right? You can't come out here and say the things that I say. You have to come out here and give everything a positive spin in our society, swallow the toxic positivity, and pretend that it tastes good. Well, I'm not here for that. And you can go to 1,000 other YouTube channels and watch that. You're here for the raw entertainment. If I ask ChatGPT right now in voice form, what is this channel? And it will say, Millennial Steam gives voice to the people with no voice. The people that can't say these things, the people who can think these things and come here and say, this is nothing but truth. This is pure, unadulterated honesty. This isn't a rosy channel. This is a place where you're going to come here and get tough love, because that's what most people need. They need to understand that you're not going to be rich. You're not going to be successful. Unless you win the lottery, you're going to bounce around from crummy job to crummy managers to crummy coworkers. Everything about regular life as a poor person sucks. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, every single day is going to be the worst day of your life.